The stage lights burned hot as the cameras rolled live across the country. The audience clapped as Bill Maher welcomed his guest with a half smile and a smart joke. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him from Raging Bull, The Irishman, and basically every mob movie ever made Robert De Niro. The applause roared. De Niro walked onto the set in a black suit, calm but sharp. He shook Maher's hand, sat down, and offered a faint grin. Maher began lightly. So, Bob, what's more dangerous, Hollywood critics or Washington politics? De Niro smiled politely. One's fiction, the other's pretending not to. B. The audience chuckled. Maher leaned back. Oh, I like that. You've been very vocal lately about, well, let's say everything. De Niro nodded. I'm not young anymore, Bill. I don't have time to sugarcoat things. For the first few minutes, it all felt like regular TV. Banter, humor, a few barbs at political figures. But then Maher brought up the state of democracy. Let's be real, he said. Everyone's outraged, everyone's performing. Doesn't matter which side, it's all theater. De Niro leaned forward. His face changed. The smile was gone. That's the problem, he said, voice steady. If you're calling it theater while real people are getting crushed. Eyebrow. I'm just trying to make people laugh, Bob. You know, lighten the load. De Niro didn't laugh. If you laugh because it's easier than caring. The room went quiet. You turn truth into punchlines, De Niro continued. And people trust you. They think you're cutting through the noise, but really, you're just adding to it. The audience shifted in their seats. Some looked confused. Others leaned in, sensing something real happening. Maher chuckled nervously. Come on, Bobby. You play mobsters, not moral philosophers. De Niro didn't flinch. Maybe it's time a guy who plays mobsters started telling the truth. Because the real mob's not in the movies anymore. It's in Washington. And no one's holding them accountable. A few people clapped, others gasped. Maher's smile faded. He adjusted his tie and looked off stage, possibly signaling the producer. But the camera stayed locked on the two men. Robert Maher said sharply, This is a comedy show. A courtroom. De Niro sat back in his chair. Least I admit it's fiction. You pretend your punchlines are policy. That line hit hard. Even the sound crew went silent. Maher leaned forward. So what? You want to stand here and preach while the rest of us try to keep people sane? No, De Niro said. I want you to stop pretending your jokes fix anything. They don't. People still go to bed hungry, still get shot, still live in fear. And we sit here making them laugh so they forget. Right, Maher said, voice cold. That's enough, Bob. He turned slightly, speaking into his mic. We're done here. Producers rushed in. The show abruptly cut to a commercial. Mid-sentence, the screen went black. Backstage, the chaos exploded. Publicists shouted. Assistants ran. Staff tried to get control of the situation. But De Niro was already walking toward the exit, calm and alone. One intern reached out. Mr. De Niro, do you want to issue a statement? He paused, looked at her, and said softly he couldn't handle the truth. Not everyone can. Then he was gone. Within minutes, the clip was online. One camera operator had kept filming. The moment De Niro challenged Marinette, it spread like wildfire. By midnight, it had millions of views. Hashtag De Niro walks and hashtag Maher cut him were trending. Worldwide. News anchors debated the moment. Was it courage or was it arrogance? Late-night hosts joked about it, while political analysts went deeper. De Niro's words echoed across both sides of the political spectrum. You pretend your punchlines. Our policy. Some called it the line of the decade. Others called it a media betrayal. De Niro refused all interview requests. He didn't go on the morning shows. He didn't release a video. Instead, on his official social media, he posted a single sentence handwritten on a notepad. If speaking the truth gets you kicked out, imagine what staying silent does. That line was shared over 10 million times in the next 24 hours. Bill Maher opened his next show with a nervous laugh and said, "Well, that escalated quickly." He tried to play it off, calling it an overblown disagreement. Something had shifted. He no longer looked like the fearless host who challenged the status quo. He looked like someone who had been publicly confronted on, didn't know what to do about it. For some, that was the end of the story. For others, it was just the beginning, because behind De Niro's fury was something else, something bigger than a bad interview. Something that no one, not Maher, not Hollywood, not even Washington, was ready to face the morning after the interview. The media world didn't just wake up ignited. News headlines screamed across screens. De Niro storms off, set truth or meltdown. Bill Maher cuts interviews short after actors furious. Rant America watches as live TV turns into a moral trial. Cable news couldn't stop replaying the moment. On CNN, analysts debated whether De Niro had crossed a line. On Fox News, commentators mocked him. MSNBC praised his passion. Social media was a wildfire of opinions, clips, memes, and long threads dissecting every word. But while the noise grew louder, one person watched in silence: Lena Cruz, seasoned investigative journalist for an independent international outlet. She wasn't interested in the theatrics. She focused on something most people missed what De Niro didn't say. He had paused during the rant, just before walking off. His eyes had flicked toward the camera, then the audience, as if weighing something, holding something back. That look stuck in Lena's mind. She started digging. Lena had covered stories from the Middle East to Capitol Hill. She knew when someone was hiding more than outrage. So she reached out to a former studio employee she trusted, someone from Maher's production crew. "Check rehearsal tapes," she asked. That same night, she got a call back. "There's something," the voice said. "Something they didn't air." The next morning, Lena received a USB stick, unmarked. She inserted it into her laptop. It was a behind-the-scenes rehearsal recording from hours before the live show. Maher and De Niro were going over talking points. Casual, unscripted. But at minute 12:44, everything changed. Maher joked about political PACs and billionaires funding influence. De Niro didn't laugh. Instead, he said something strange. "You know who's really writing those laws, right? It's not Congress. It's the Paladin Group." Maher responded, "Oh, come on. That's one of those conspiracy things, right?" De Niro stared him down. "You'll see." Lena paused the video. The Paladin Group. She'd heard whispers about them before, an elite political funding network. Deeply private, suspected of pushing silent agendas through media platforms and judicial appointments. But no hard evidence had ever surfaced. Just rumors until now. If De Niro knew more, then his walkout wasn't just about frustration. It was about what he wasn't allowed to say. Lena called her editor. "I'm going dark for a week. This goes deep." Meanwhile, across the country, Robert De Niro sat quietly in his New York apartment. Watching the storm unfold on TV, his agent begged him to clarify, to fix the media damage. But he refused. He sipped coffee, turned down the volume, and opened a locked cabinet. Inside was an old leather folder, worn at the edges. On the cover, a name scribbled in faded ink. Michael De Niro, his brother. Michael had once worked as a federal cybersecurity contractor. In 2017, he vanished without a trace. The official story was classified disappearance, but Robert had always suspected otherwise. That folder contained what Michael had left. Behind notes, memory cards, old burner phones. He never looked through all of it. But now it was time. Inside, he found something labeled simply, "Cassandra, final dump." He plugged it into an offline laptop. It's open to a list of encrypted files, digital receipts, code names, and internal memos. It's all linked to the Paladin Group, and more. Disturbingly, to media companies, senators, defense contractors, and even federal judges. Robert sat still. His hands shook. The things Michael had written in the margins were terrifying. Controlled votes. Newsroom editors on payroll. Foreign money greater than campaign ethics. Do not trust Doge. And in bold, underlined twice. If they find this, they kill the messenger. Robert closed the file. Suddenly, the walkout didn't feel like enough. He reached for his phone. Not to call an agent or publicist, but someone else, Lena Cruz. He had seen one of her past reports on judicial corruption and remembered her name. Her integrity. The message was simple. You were right to look closer. I need to talk, quietly. I'll explain everything. Lena received it while riding. In a cab through Manhattan, chasing her next lead. She froze, then smiled. Something big was coming. Something bigger than a TV meltdown. Because the moment De Niro walked off that stage, he had started a countdown. One that would lead to the exposure of something buried deep beneath the jokes, applause, and headlines. And when the truth came out, some very powerful people wouldn't be laughing anymore. Rain fell hard on the Manhattan sidewalk as Lena Cruz entered the quiet cafe just off 6th Avenue. She wore a black hoodie, kept her phone off, and sat in the farthest booth from the door. Her laptop stayed zipped shut. She was used to meetings, like this off-grid, vague, possibly dangerous. 15 minutes later, Robert De Niro walked in. He wasn't wearing sunglasses or a hat. He didn't care about being seen. He walked slowly but with purpose. When he sat across from her, he didn't say hello. I don't trust phones, he said, opening his coat and pulling out a brown envelope. So I printed it. Lena nodded. She took the envelope and slowly opened it. Inside were 20 printed pages and a thumb drive. At the top of the first page, bold text read, Cassandra Interlink Report Subject. Paladin Operations, this is what your brother was killed. 4. Lena asked softly. Robert looked out the window. He wasn't perfect, but he knew the difference between shadows and lies. He found something real and they made him disappear. Lena flipped through the documents. Code names, flight logs, donation chains. A judge in Texas receiving $200,000 through a crypto wallet from a shell company tied to the Paladin Group. A cable news producer who was paid to kill specific stories. And most disturbing, a document labeled Media Primacy Agreement outlining talking points handed to multiple high-profile talk show hosts, including Bill Maher. Her jaw tightened. You knew they'd cut you off. Robert nodded. I didn't expect Maher to pull the plug so fast, though. Guess I touched a nerve. You were planning to go public. I was planning to get them to say something stupid and air. Get a name, a slip. I knew once I said Paladin, someone backstage would panic. Lena paused. They did. And now they're watching. Robert slid over a phone. Unregistered, clean. If you need to reach me, use that. She nodded. Then looked up. Why me? You don't have a team behind you. It's no studio. You've still asked questions. You've burned bridges and still kept working. That's the kind of person who survives this. Lena leaned forward. I don't want to survive it. I want to bury them. Robert smirked. Then we're on the same side. They parted ways an hour later. Lena didn't go home. She booked a room under a fake name and got to work. She scanned the Cassandra files, matching names and accounts to her own investigation archives. She found overlaps she hadn't seen before. 3 members of Congress tied 2 off-book consulting firms. A major streaming services CEO listed as a compliance partner. And a familiar name, Senator Calvin Drexler, who had once been a guest on Maher's show and praised for his moderate clarity. But Drexler wasn't moderate. He was central. A new document inside the thumb drive confirmed it. Drexler had personally authorized funding to a covert surveillance firm that helped Paladin monitor dissenting voices, including Lena's own reporting 3 years ago. Her blood ran cold. De Niro wasn't the only target. That night, she called her editor. This goes all the way up. We're not just talking about campaign money or biased news. We're talking about information control, narrative engineering, Judges, comedians, reporters, even filmmakers, they're all in it. "What are you planning?" her editor asked. "I'm going to leak the first wave, just enough to stir the hive." "Are you sure?" "No," Lena whispered, "but I'd rather die telling the truth than live knowing I didn't." Across the city, De Niro sat alone in his apartment. The TV was off. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number flashed. "You went too far. Walk away." He stared at it, then deleted it. Outside, a black SUV parked across the street. No one got out, no one moved. He stood, looked out the window, and muttered to himself, "Let them watch." The next morning, Lena's leak hit the internet. She dropped a story on an encrypted publishing platform. Title: The Cassandra Files, America's Invisible Puppet Masters. It included financial records, internal emails, and a list of media personalities who had quietly accepted money to promote strategic public messaging. Within hours, the website crashed under traffic. But the story had already spread. News outlets scrambled to verify. Maher's name was trending again, this time not for comedy. One line from the documents shocked readers the most. "Satire is the safest disguise for influence. Mock the system, and no one notices you're part of it." Lena went off the grid. De Niro received another message. "You think this is over. It's not even started." But he smiled to himself, because for the first time in a long time, the curtain was lifting. And behind it was a machine built not to inform, but to distract. And they had just thrown a wrench into its gears. 3 days after the Cassandra leak, chaos gripped Washington. Senator Calvin Drexler stood in front of reporters. Outside the Capitol, flanked by aides and visibly shaken. "These are unfounded accusations," he said into the mics. "We categorically deny any connection to Paladin or any so-called shadow network." But he didn't take questions, because questions were already being answered online. The Cassandra. Documents were now being dissected by investigative reporters across the globe. Analysts from Europe, South America, and even Asia began tracing hidden payments. Offshore accounts and private meetings that had long been denied or ignored. In New York, Lena Cruz stayed underground. She was holed up in a borrowed apartment. In Queens, sleeping in short bursts and living on instant noodles and adrenaline. Her encrypted server received over 2,000 tips in 48 hours. Most were noise, some were threats, but a few were gold. She had decrypted another file that Robert De Niro had given her. This one was marked Media Grid Internal Structure. Inside were flowcharts, diagrams, mapping out the architecture of controlled media. Shows, platforms, even influencers. Many of them popular political commentators. All of them connected. 2 packs run by Paladin or its affiliate groups. She couldn't publish it all yet. Too dangerous, but she had to do something. So she reached out. Robert picked up the burner phone after one ring. "It's Lena," she said. "We have proof of message coordination, live show scripts, down to the talking points. Everything. They even had fallback responses if someone asked about Paladin on air." "I believe it," he said. "That's how I got cut off. They knew I was going off script." "I need to go bigger," she said. "Bigger than the internet, I need a camera." "And you?" Robert paused. "You want me back on screen?" "Yes," Lena said. "You've already made yourself a target. They'll try to spin you as unstable, angry, irrelevant." We hit them with facts, with calm, and with the face the world knows. He was quiet for a moment. "All right, this time I'd pick the studio." They chose an international network based in London, known for giving platforms to whistleblowers and dissenters. The interview would be pre-recorded, aired worldwide, with a global reach. No corporate censorship, no surprise cuts. 3 days later, they were both flown in under aliases. Robert wore a cap and sunglasses. Lena carried a flash drive that held their last line of truth if anything went wrong. The studio was clean, quiet, high-tech. The interviewer was a respected anchor named Rami Nasser, known for grilling presidents and exposing war crimes. No nonsense. Perfect for this. As the lights dimmed and cameras started rolling, Rami leaned forward. Mr. De Niro, the world saw you walk out of a live interview. Since then, there's been chaos, leaks, and rumors. What do you want people to know? Robert didn't blink. That I didn't lose my temper. I broke a silence. A silence we all pretended was okay because it was easier to laugh than to look. He took out a sheet of paper, simple, black and white. It was a printout from the Cassandra files. He held it up. This shows media coordination with political operatives. It shows strategic messaging to shift public mood. Not by mistake, by design. And it's been happening for years. Rami asked. You believe the media is being used to control, not inform? Yes, De Niro said. To distract. To divide. To create noise so no one hears the truth anymore, Lena joined. Him halfway through the interview, she explained how the Cassandra files were collected by whistleblowers inside the digital surveillance world. How her own reporting was flagged by the Paladin Group years ago. How influencers were paid to stay silent or to speak very loudly in specific topics. Rami looked serious. What happens now? Lena answered. Now we see who listens. And who tries to silence us again. The interview aired 24 hours later. It was translated into 15 languages, broadcast on every continent. Clips flooded the internet. De Niro's face was no longer just a meme from a viral walkout hit, was a symbol. But symbols have consequences. The day after the broadcast, two things happened. First, Senator Drexler resigned suddenly. No press conference. No explanation. Second, the Cassandra server went offline. Lena's safe apartment was raided that night. She wasn't there. She was already in transit to an undisclosed location, carrying hard drives with all the data. She wasn't running. She was preparing. Robert De Niro turned off his phone and disappeared from public view. But his final message, shared through Lena's feed, shook the world. This is not a movie. There's no director yelling cut. The show is real. The danger is real. And the next act is coming, whether you're ready or not. For millions, it wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a war for truth. And the battle had just begun. The storm moved faster than anyone expected. 2 days after the De Niro interview aired, the United States Department of Justice made a statement. A brief, flat denial. We are aware of recent allegations involving media and political influence. Operations. These claims are under internal review. It was meaningless. But it wasn't the DOJ people were watching. Now it was FBI Director Amanda Weiss. She appeared suddenly at a press conference in D.C., flanked by agents and looking unusually tense. We are launching an independent inquiry into alleged external influence operations on federal and state officials, she said. This includes unauthorized political funding, judicial interference, and possible data manipulation within major media channels. A gasp rippled through the press corps. Reporters shouted questions, but she walked off without answering a bin. Single one. It was the first public acknowledgement. And it came with consequences. That same night, Lena Cruz got a message through a secure back channel. One of your sources has flipped. Trust no one. She was in Berlin now, staying in an old safe house used by foreign correspondents during the Cold War. Gray walls, heavy locks, no internet-only burner phones and paper files. Robert De Niro had gone even deeper underground. Its only communication came through pre-written messages delivered by hand. They both knew what this meant. Someone inside the Paladin system was trying to erase the leak sand, the leakers. Then came the first death. A mid-level tech analyst from a major U.S. news network found dead in his Brooklyn apartment. Officially, suicide. But Lena had spoken to him just a day before. He'd agreed to hand over records showing secret payments to his employer's narrative division. Now he was gone. She stared at the photo of his body on her screen, heart pounding. The news report showed a typed note beside his hand. It read, "This is the cost of truth." She turned off the light, sat alone in the dark, and decided. Next wave wouldn't wait. She scheduled a global document dump. Not a single file, not one story. All of it. The Cassandra Archive released in full thousands of files uploaded across mirrored networks worldwide. Secure, encrypted, the contents covered everything from judicial tampering and media bribes to black ops surveillance, rigged polling systems, and AI-manipulated news feeds. The drop hit the internet like a bomb. Within hours, governments around the world responded. In France, a former presidential advisor was arrested. In Canada, an emergency inquiry into media funding was announced. In Brazil, a whistleblower revealed how elections were streamlined with Paladin software. And in the U.S., civil protests broke out across major cities. Not just left or right, but everyone. People holding signs that read, "Who owns our truth?" Satire is a weapon. The puppet masters are real. The Paladin Group issued a statement of denial slick. Legal, emotionless. But it didn't matter. Too many people had seen the files. Too many could no longer pretend. Back in Berlin, Lena received a visit from an old friend, Daniel Garza, a former intelligence operative turned whistleblower. He looked exhausted. "I've seen this kind of operation before," he said, "but not this big. Not this synchronized. They used to call it information sculpting. Take 10 truths, cut 3, add 2 lies, and frame the rest like entertainment." He handed Lena a folder. Inside were photos, surveillance shots, her face. Robert's multiple cities. "They're coming for you both," Daniel said. "And they're not using subpoenas." Lena didn't flinch. "Let them come." "No," Daniel said, leaning forward. "You need to survive, because you're not just a reporter anymore. You're a living archive." That night, Lena pre-recorded a video, her voice steady, eyes tired, but unshaken. She spoke directly to the world. If you're watching this, you already know something's wrong. Not just with politics or media or justice, but with reality itself. You've been watching a show. A performance written and directed by those who profit from confusion. But we've pulled back the curtain. What happens next is up to you. It went live the next morning. 20 million views in 12 hours. De Niro, from hiding, saw it on a cracked phone screen. He smiled for the first time in days, because the truth was no longer in the hands of a few. It was everywhere, and now even the Paladin Group couldn't stop what was coming. But they were going to try. In the early morning silence of Geneva, Switzerland, a private jet touched down on a fog-covered runway. The aircraft was unmarked, its passengers anonymous. But inside sat 3 of the most powerful board members of the Paladin Group. They had flown in from different parts of the world, Dubai, Virginia, and Singapore. Their meeting was urgent. Inside a cold, windowless conference room beneath an old banking fortress, they watched footage from the global protests. Dozens of countries now had Cassandra-inspired movements, civil unrest, legislative inquiries, court subpoenas. It was all unraveling faster than they'd predicted. "She's out of control," one said, meaning Lena Cruz and the actor. The second added, referring to De Niro. "He gave her credibility. We underestimated them both," said the third. "It's time to activate protocol glass curtain." A red folder was placed on the table. Inside, detailed plans for coordinated online takedowns. Asset freezing, discrediting operations. And worst-case scenario, neutralization. Their plan wasn't just to erase the evidence, it was to erase belief in the evidence. They could convince the public that the Cassandra files were doctored fake, manipulated. They could still win. Confusion was their best weapon. Across the Atlantic in a dim Berlin apartment, Lena Cruz woke to the sound of encrypted messages pinging. 5 new leaks, all from whistleblowers inside Paladin-aligned companies. One showed proof that a major social media platform was already suppressing hashtags related to her story. Another revealed a digital misinfo pipeline, an AI program, designed to rewrite public-facing articles within 18 hours of explosive leaks, changing context and headlines without readers ever noticing. But the most chilling message came with no body text, just a video, security footage from the hallway, outside Lena's safe house, from 30 minutes ago. 3 men in suits. One glanced at her door. The other two looked straight into the camera, then waved. They knew where she was. Her hands trembled, but only for a moment. She picked up her go bag, smashed her burner phone, and vanished into the Berlin night. She had expected this. And she was ready. Elsewhere, Robert De Niro had gone completely off the grid till he walked into a small radio station in upstate New York. No security, no agents. Just an old friend behind the mic, a Vietnam vet turned activist named Don Booker. "Are you sure about this?" Tone asked, as he poured coffee into paper cups. Robert nodded. "No producers, no edits, just you, me, and the truth." They went live for the next hour. De Niro spoke without filter, about Paladin, about media corruption, about his brother Michael, about why he chose to risk everything. And at the end, he said something that cut through the static of politics and conspiracy. "I don't care if you believe me. Care that you ask. Ask who benefits from the silence. Ask why your news sounds like marketing. Ask why judges and comedians repeat the same lines. And if you're afraid to ask yourself why." Within minutes, the interview was clipped, shared, and posted everywhere. Hashtags exploded again. Hashtag De Niro Unfiltered. Hashtag Glass Curtain. Hashtag We See You, Paladin. But just as quickly, strange things began to happen. Major websites went down for maintenance. Videos were marked as sensitive content. Entire social media accounts sharing Cassandra documents were banned or shadowed. It had begun. Glass Curtain was live. Meanwhile, Lena met her contact Daniel Garzot, a frozen railway station in Zurich. He handed her a key. "What's this?" she asked. "It opens a vault. Old Cold War asset stash. Inside is a backup of everything. Not digital. Printed, indexed. If they erase the cloud, this survives." He leaned in closer. "But there's something else. A name buried in Paladin's real charter. Not a company, not a committee, a person." He slipped her a torn document. Half a name was visible. "Dr. M, I think this is the architect," Daniel said. "The one who started all of it." Lena stared at the paper. Not a group. A person. Someone with the power to design a machine to control truth. A master behind the mask of Paladin. And if that person still lived, they needed to be found. The train arrived. As Lena and Daniel boarded, a drone passed silently overhead. In Washington, D.C., FBI Director Amanda Weiss held a classified memo in her hands. The title read, "Paladin Internal Collapse Risk, 96%. At the bottom, a stamped red line, "Initiate Interagency Containment." The system was crumbling. But now, the question wasn't just who would survive it. It was who had built it in the first place. And whether Lena and De Niro could stop them before the world stopped trusting anything at all. The final move came not with a bomb, not with a bullet, but with a press conference. It was held in a quiet, stone-walled hall inside the United Nations building in Geneva. No flags, no stage. Just a single table, 2 microphones, and a crowd of reporters from every major global outlet: BBC, Al Jazeera, Reuters. Even hesitant U.S. networks. At exactly 9 a.m., Lena Cruz stepped out from behind a curtain. She wore a plain black coat. No makeup, no entourage. Next to her stood Robert De Niro. His hair was silver now, more from stress than age. His expression was grim but steady. He didn't smile. Lena leaned into the mic. Her voice echoed. "You for coming. I know many of you were warned not to attend." Murmurs rippled through the room. she continued. This is not a press conference. It's a line in the sand. The documents we've released are no longer just leaks. They are now verified by independent security analysts in 6 countries. Paladin exists. Media control exists. And we've uncovered the person behind it. Gasps. Reporters leaned forward. She clicked a small remote, and a screen behind her lit up. A name appeared in bold white letters. Dr. Marcus Vellum, followed by former psychological warfare. Consultant NATO, current director, Paladin Group. Lena's voice stayed calm. Dr. Vellum developed a system for narrative influence, originally used to stabilize conflict zones. But when war moved online, so did his machine. Paladin was his answer to an invisible threat. It became a weapon turned inward in democracy. Itself, De Niro stepped up to the mic. He was the man behind the curtain. We chased fake stories, fake enemies. Meanwhile, Vellum wrote scripts for judges, journalists, politicians, even entertainers. We became characters in a show he directed. Reporters asked questions, shouting over each other. Where is he now? Is there a warrant? Who? Protected him, Lena answered. He disappeared 2 days ago. We believe he's in Eastern Europe, possibly under the protection of a corporate security unit. But his network is failing. Too many of his allies are turning. The code is breaking. She held up a final flash drive. This contains the complete Paladin architecture names. Payments, contracts, the algorithm models used to shape public mood. This will be given to the UN Oversight Committee, the International Criminal Court, and every major news outlet in this room. One reporter asked, "What if you're stopped?" De Niro looked directly at the cameras. "I've already made copies, thousands of them, hidden, distributed. If you're watching this, it's because someone refused to be silenced." A long silence followed. Then applause, quiet at first, then building, and everyone clapped. But enough did to echo across the marble walls. That night, as the Geneva press conference aired globally, reaction was swift. The U.S. Senate opened an emergency bipartisan hearing. Senators demanded to know how long Paladin had operated in the shadows and who else had played a role. In London, protesters surrounded the headquarters of a major media group named in the Cassandra Files. In Cairo, graffiti appeared on old concrete walls. Truth is the new revolution, but far. Away in a mountain villa somewhere in Albania, Dr. Marcus Vellum watched the events unfold on a muted screen. He was calm. He sipped tea. A young man next to him said, "Should we go to phase 2? Vellum shook his head. "No, they've turned the lights on. The shadows don't work anymore." The man asked, "So what now?" Vellum smiled faintly. "Now we watch what they do with the truth. That's the real test." Back in New York, Lena Cruz returned to her old newsroom not to work, but to watch. Across all channels, anchors now hesitated before reading the news. Audiences questioned. Politicians flinched when asked direct questions. Comedians adjusted their monologues. It wasn't perfect. But it was different. De Niro walked out of his apartment one last time, past a mural someone had painted near his building. His face. And under it, the words, "You can silence a voice." But not the echo. He didn't need to say anything anymore, 'cause the show was over. And for the first time in years, the world was ready to change the channel.